Okay. So, a quick recap of what we discussed. So when somebody has acted in a way that is hurtful for us, we are trying to understand how to make sense of things and then how to respond to them. So basically, when we function in the world, we take in information. We use our jnana indriyas. So through that we get jnana. That is, we get information, we get knowledge. So these are associated with perception. So then after that we do action with our karmendriyas. So this is constantly a dynamic that is happening. So right now, for example, you are hearing something. Now if it interests you, then you may lean forward and your attention becomes more. If it sounds not very relevant or not so easy to understand, then you might just lean back, you might start looking at the watch. So that dynamic goes on constantly. So our first session is about, say, how do we look at the wrongdoer? The person who has hurt us, what should be our vision of them? The second is, what we want to discuss is about the person who is above all of us, the Lord. So Krishna is there. So how do we see his role over here? So I'll start by asking you, so when bad things happen in this world, what is so it's like our, or you can say more generally, human wrongdoings and God's doings. So what exactly is the relationship?
Karma.
Sorry?
Karma.
Karma is one. So that means, what do you mean by that exactly? That actions come upon us by our karma and God is overseeing it. So we could say karma overseen by God. So in that sense, so is God making that happen?
He's not the direct cause of it.
Partially.
So partially, okay. So it's more that karma is the cause in that sense, you could say. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Anything else?
God can actually change the situation.
So he said he has the power to change the situation. Now, as soon as we raise that, then there's this point, and the next point pops up. Then why doesn't he change the situation? Why doesn't he change it more often? Why does he change it sometimes? Why does he not change it sometimes?
Intentional challenges.
Okay, so this is the one thing I like. That there is some lesson to learn over here, and that lesson to learn is arranged by God. Okay. Anything else?
Similar, like a challenge. You've been given a challenge.
It's a challenge or a test. We could say for our growth. Just like if we are learning something, if we are training in something, then there are tests over there. The tests help us grow. Anything else?
I sometimes think it's to help support that other person for their growth. You've been challenged to give them something back. You can make them change or support.
So maybe we could say it is meant to increase some kind of virtue within us. Maybe that person is not kind to us, but we are being trained to be kind. Is that what you're saying? Something like that? Or what?
They may not realise their behaviour, so
Yeah.
you giving them you might be giving them some opportunity or trying to make some changes within them. I don't know if that's even possible.
Okay, that's one important. Say, we are meant to be an instrument for change. So it could be by maybe explaining to that person, by educating that person, by stimulating that person's growth. So there are various ways in which God may be playing a role in what happens in our lives. So now, let's try to put this in a bit of a more of a philosophical framework, and then we'll move forward and we'll try to understand how we should respond. So, when things happen in the world, this what I'm going to talk about is especially discussed in 5.12 to 16 in the Gita. This is in philosophy, the word used for this is etiology. Etiology is the study of causation. Why do things happen? So understanding the causal connection between things. So for example, right now, when the mic was not working, now I could say that, okay, the mic is not working, maybe it's God's will that I should not give this class. And the mic stopping working would not happen without God's will. Isn't it? But does that necessarily mean God's will that I should not give this class? Not necessarily, isn't it? So it means maybe I should be willing to speak without a mic. Maybe I have to exercise my throat a little bit. Maybe it means the organizer should be ready with a backup plan if the sound system stops working. So the idea is that the same event, one event, not a person, let's put it. So one event that has happened, that can be put in many different causal contexts. What do I mean by this? That, let's consider just here, not very far from here, when about several hundred years ago, when Newton is said to have felt the apple fall on his head. Now it's probably apocryphal, the apple might have fallen in front of him or wherever, but whatever it is. Now when the apple fell on his head, that led to a question in Newton's mind. The question was, what made the apple fall? And Newton believed in God. But at that time, he was not looking for the answer, God made the apple fall. Did God make the apple fall? Well, yes. When Newton is attributed to have said, several people have said to have said this, that, "Oh Father, I think thy thoughts after thee." That means, the way you have fashioned this world, I am trying to understand that now. So I think thy thoughts after me. So when he was looking for the cause of what made the apple fall, he accepted that, okay, God is the ultimate cause. But he was looking at that point not for the ultimate cause. He was looking more for the mechanism by which the apple fell. And he came up with the understanding of gravity. So that is a significant insight in terms of the advent of the age of science and technology in modern humanity's history. So the idea is that there could be multiple levels of explanations that could apply in the same situation. So if right now I start feeling cold, it could be because maybe I'm not wearing warm enough clothes. Maybe just behind me there's air conditioning. Maybe it's because I'm not habituated to this weather. Maybe it's because I have fever. There could be so many different reasons. And which frame do I put that particular cause, event, the cause of that event in? That requires intelligence. So, when a person, say, is not having inner stability, mental stability they don't have, often they take the most unconstructive or destructive explanation for everything. So for example, if somebody goes to a party and they greet someone and that person doesn't greet them back, this person starts thinking, oh, nobody respects me, nobody cares for me, nobody loves me. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I'm intrinsically unlovable. Maybe I should never go to any social gatherings. Maybe I'll always be lonely. Maybe I should not live only. Now we say, why? Is there somebody to greet you back? Why are you going to that level that I'm unlovable and my life is unlivable? But generally speaking, when we take an event and we try to come up with an explanation for that event. Now, so this event can be put in many causal contexts. Causal context means that which cause-effect context framework should I consider? So we could put it's our intelligence which helps us to put it in a constructive context. Constructive means I can do something about it. So if you put in a constructive context, that is good. If you put in a destructive context, that is unhealthy. So now when we consider destructive context, so when we are trying to contextualize an event, contextualize cause, there could be two extremes of destructivity. That one is that God has no role. That, oh, in this world I'm all alone, I'm facing these big bad people, and this world is, God is up there somewhere, God doesn't know me, God doesn't care for me, what is going on in my life. So we can just feel forsaken and we think God has no role in it. Now, the other is the God is the sole cause of this. And we don't consider any other factor at all. So here only in London, now next week we are having Rath Yatra. So one of the first Rath Yatras that the devotees did over here. It's very new. They had made a grand Rath. So all the devotees at that time, when in 1968, they did the first Rath Yatra in San Francisco, in the Western world. And the devotees decided to do something over here. But they made a huge Rath, far bigger than what was there in San Francisco. However, they did not make the wheels correspondingly bigger. And when the Rath was going out, it just collapsed. And it was a nightmare managing everything after the collapse of the Rath. So the devotees wrote to Prabhupada, who was not there at that time. He said, Prabhupada, did the Rath collapse because of our poor devotion? Is Krishna angry with us? And Prabhupada replied, it collapsed because of your poor engineering. So, in general, there is the Vedic system of logic called Nyaya. And Nyaya talks something about causality. So when we are trying to figure out the cause of a behavior, it's best to move first from the drushta, then to the adrushta. Drushta means visible. First look for visible, tangible, immediate explanations, and then move towards invisible explanations. So if I'm speaking and I start getting a coughing attack, now the invisible explanation could be, oh, I have done some bad karma because of which I got this cough attack. Well, that's possible, but maybe something is stuck in my throat, maybe something has come up, maybe just drink some water and it goes away. So when we start going towards adrushta, invisible explanations right in the beginning, that can make us unnecessarily passive, unhealthily passive. So that causality, look for explanations, move from the immediate towards gradually more and more distant explanations. But that doesn't mean the distant explanation is not important. But we have to move incrementally. In terms of this understanding of God's role, so God is the ultimate cause of everything. But that does not necessarily mean He is the immediate cause of everything. So, God, let's put it another way, God is the cause of all causes. But He is not the cause of all effects. What is the difference between cause of all causes and cause of all effects? Say, for example, we could say rain is the cause of all vegetation. If there is no rain, there will be no vegetation. But the seeds are the cause of particular vegetation growing at a particular place. The rain is not causing weeds to grow in particular places and grains to grow in other places. That is what the people over there have done. There are other causes involved. So now if you consider, some people say that everything is actually done by God. Well, not really. Let's carefully examine. Say for example, if you go to the Mahabharata or you go to the Ramayana, there are terrible incidents that happen in both. Say Draupadi is dishonored. There's a vicious attempt made to disrobe her. Sita is actually abducted. So now, is it that when Dushyasan is disrobing Draupadi, is it Krishna doing that through Dushyasan? Obviously not. It's an outrageous thing to think about. Krishna comes to rescue her. Krishna comes and extends her garment unlimitedly. So now Dushyasan's strength comes from Krishna. Everybody's strength comes from Krishna. That's what Prahlad Maharaj tells Hiranyakashipu, that even that your strength of Hiranyakashipu, your Lord Brahma's strength, everybody's strength comes from the Supreme Lord Vishnu. So here it is Dushyasan's strength comes from Krishna, but Dushyasan's action of disrobing, that doesn't come from Krishna. That comes from his own free will. So it's important to understand that God is not the cause of all causes. He is the cause of all effects. Is that correct? No, it's the exact opposite. God is the cause of all causes, not the cause of all effects. And now we may say then, okay, then is God not involved at all when Dushyasan is, say, disrobing Draupadi? If he is, we say that yes, his strength, Dushasan's strength also comes from God. Okay, then what does that mean practically? Why is God allowing that to happen? So basically, I'll just explain this point and I can see that there are some questions, we'll address them. That now when we say God's will, there's a saying that not a blade of grass moves without God's will. But Maya Dakshin and Prakriti Krishna also says that everything happens under my supervision. But God's will can range from things that are happening are his intention and things that happen are with his permission. Upadrashta Anumanta, Krishna says. I am the permitter. So when things happen, they may happen not because God wants them to happen, but because God allows them to happen. Now why does he allow certain things to happen? That is because with respect to causality, we can say that there are three broad factors. There is free will. We are all living beings. There is jiva. We are all souls and we have free will. And then there is ultimately God's will. That is, he is Jagadish. So there is free will, there is God's will, and there is evil. Now, evil is not some dark being that exists somewhere. Evil is the conditioning, the samskaras that are there in people's psyches, in their mind. There are impressions, and these impressions impel people to some actions. So when some actions happen, it's individuals are choosing to do certain things. That's free will. Some individuals are pushed to do certain things. When they let themselves get pushed, that's also a factor. But there is this some dark force inside us which impels us to do things. That is the conditionings coming from the subtle body. And beyond that, there is God's will. So going back to that framework of action, when an event happens, one event could be, the cause of the event is my free will. Other cause of the event is that there is some evil involved over there. And the ultimate causal framework is there is God's will. So let's try to understand this a little bit more before I move forward. This is a very important concept to overall understand. So now when a particular thing is done, say let's consider Sita was abducted by Ravana. Now who is responsible for it? Now nothing would happen unless the Lord allows it to happen. But just because the Lord allows something to happen does not mean that He wants it to. And therefore, it's not constructive to hold God personally responsible for what happens. I'll explain why not shortly. But when Sita was abducted, now who is primarily responsible for that? Ravan set up a whole conspiracy by which Sita was abducted. Now we could say Sita came out of the Lakshman Rekha, or Sita had an argument with Lakshman and she sent Lakshman away. Now that also contributed. When things happen, we could go into various reasons why something happened. But the constructive, when I said constructive causal analysis, that means that helps us to focus on factors we can do something about. Otherwise, if we don't focus on this constructively, then we get caught in thinking that, oh, there's nothing I can do about this. So, I'll give one metaphor to explain this, then we'll have questions and we'll move forward again after that. In 9.6 in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna uses a particular metaphor. Let's try to look at this verse. Krishna says, Yatha akash sthito nityam, that just as in the sky, everything is situated. Vayu sarvatra go mahan, that yatha akash sthito, that in the sky, the wind is situated. Go mahan, the wind can move left, right, up, down. But if you consider the sky to be like an upside down bowl, situated in the sky. Tatha sarvani bhutani. Similarly, all living beings are situated in matsthanitya upadharaya. Let's recite this verse. Yatha akash sthito nityam. Vayu sarvatra go mahan. Tatha sarvani bhutani. Matsthanitya upadharaya. So here, let's try to visualize what Krishna is saying. Basically, he's saying that every individual, you could compare them. Around them, there is the sky, which is like an upside down bowl. So this is basically God's will. And within that, the individual has free will. So right now, for example, I'm sitting here. Now I can speak something sensible, intelligent, that not only helps you understand things but inspires you to study the Bhagavad Gita. I can just ramble on pointlessly, and that will make you think, okay, when will this session go? I just want to get away from here. Or I can speak some foul words, I can speak something offensive, and that makes you want to get out of here right now. Just walk away. So I have that freedom right now to speak whatever I want. But so it's like right now you have come into this room. So you could say my area of influence is this room, and you have come in my area of influence. Now, if I speak something offensive, even if you don't want to hear it, even if you walk out of here right away, but till you walk out of here, you will have to hear it. If you are at one end of the room, the door is at the other end of the room, you will have to hear it. So, in the present situation, I have some power. But if I abuse this power, if I speak something which is offensive, then maybe I will not be invited here again. I am a traveling speaker and I am invited in different places. So, the power that I have right now, I may no longer have it in the future. So, basically, during our life journey, so this is basically in Sanskrit, the word used for this is kshetra. Kshetra is our sphere or area of influence. Now, within this, what we do is up to us. So, if I am trying to use all my intelligence and my ability to explain Krishna's message, then broadly you can say I am trying to do God's will. But if I start speaking something offensive, now yes, Krishna is allowing that to happen. That's not Krishna's intention, but Krishna allows that to happen. That's, he gives the permission. So basically during our life journey, sometimes our kshetra might be small. Say if I am traveling through a country where nobody knows the language that I speak and I don't know the language that they speak, then my capacity to communicate becomes very limited. It's only when there's somebody who's a translator there, then I can communicate with. Sometimes our kshetra may be very large. Sometimes again our kshetra may become very small. So a child may get angry, a small baby might get angry, the baby might just scream, bite the lip and throw up its hands and legs. Baby can't do much, maybe kick the mother a little bit. But the legs are so small, his hands are so small, what can it hurt? But that same person becomes a young person, becomes an adult. You know, their fists, their kicks, maybe they get a gun, they can be very dangerous. That same person becomes old and sickly, they may get angry, but they just don't have physical capacity to do much with their anger. So our kshetra keeps changing even in this life. Now, while we have a particular kshetra, say, we get our particular kshetra by our past karma. So, by our past karma, some of us may have a small sphere of influence, some of us may have a large sphere of influence. Now, within this kshetra, what we do is up to us. And God does not interfere with that. So, if Dushasan has some great physical power, that physical power has come by his past karma, whatever it might be. But now, how he is going to use it is up to him. And for a particular duration, when he is meant to have that particular power, so if say, in their kshetra, somebody else's path goes through that. So somebody else walks through that kshetra. Then during that time, that person will be influenced by that. Say somebody owns a company, and maybe they are very tyrannical, very exploitative, very abusive. But say we are looking for a job and that's the only job that we get. Then during that period, when we are employed by that person, we are in their kshetra. And when that person exploits us or abuses us, it's not God doing that. It is that person doing that. Now God allows that to happen. But that doesn't mean God is doing that. So there are many things which may happen in this world which are not God's will. In the sense that it is not what God wants to happen. We see this in the Mahabharata when Krishna went as a peace messenger. As a peace messenger, he sought to avoid the war. And he did his very best. He tried to use reason to give an explanation. When that didn't work, he tried to accommodate the other person and told him, you just give the Pandavas 5 villages. Just show some symbolic gesture at least that you want a peaceful settlement. But what did the other person do? Duryodhana just rejected Krishna's peace proposal. See, there are different ways of saying no also. Right now, this war between Ukraine and Russia has been going on for so long now. Now, normally, maybe there are some peace proposals going on. Mostly, nothing is going on for peace. But say maybe some security heads from the different sides might be negotiating and maybe meeting and discussing. But suppose, say, the president of Ukraine goes to Russia, or the president of Russia comes to Ukraine to seek peace. Then that means the very person coming, which person is coming has a weight to that peace proposal. So Krishna is God, but even if Duryodhana doesn't accept Krishna as God, Krishna is an extremely formidable warrior. And Krishna is going as a peace messenger. That just shows how serious the Pandavas were. Now, Krishna goes to seek peace and Krishna fails. Now, can God's plan fail? Can God fail for that matter? What do you think? Well, God failed, isn't it? So, Krishna went on a peace mission and he failed. But it's not that simple. That Krishna had another plan. Krishna had another purpose over there. Krishna wanted to avoid the war as much as possible. But if the war was not to be avoided, Krishna wanted to make sure that everyone understood that the cause of the war was not the Pandavas. It was the Kauravas. Because they were stubborn in insisting on war. So, when Duryodhana rejected the peace proposal, does anyone know what he said? What did he say?
I won't give you enough land to drive a pin into.
Yes, I won't give you enough land to put the tip of a needle through. Now, if that had been there on social media, this would have become a viral Insta reel. What a dialogue. But if you look at it in context, what does it imply? He's saying no, but there are different ways of saying no. Say there's some ceremony at our home, maybe birthday ceremony, wedding ceremony, or some religious ceremony, and we invite someone to come to our home. Now that person doesn't want to come, so they make an excuse. Now they are making an excuse, we know that they are making an excuse, and they know that we know that they are making an excuse. But out of politeness, they are trying to make an excuse. But suppose they say, even if I die, my dead body will never come to your ceremony. Then it is not just a refusal to that particular invitation. It's a kick in the face of the inviter. So, Duryodhana's rejection of Krishna's plan was a kick in Krishna's face in one sense. He thought, I'm so clever. But actually, he played right into Krishna's hands. Because Krishna wanted peace. If peace is not there, let the world know who is the cause of war. And Duryodhan couldn't have served a better visual demonstration. Verbal and visual demonstration both. Verbal is what he spoke, visual is he tried to arrest Krishna. So he just played into Krishna's hands. So basically, now when we say, see, God's plan is always working. Now, but the question is, which plan? So Krishna's plan was, for example, for peace, that was plan A. Plan B was for establishing the who were the disruptors or the destroyers of peace. So Krishna can have multiple plans. So now when God is acting in this world, that there is God's will, the divine will. Now human will can go along and be an instrument for God's will. We can do what God wants to do. We can do something different from what God wants to do. We can do something opposite of what God wants to do. All are possible. So now this, if we do, this is God's intention. If we do anything else, that is, God gives permission. So when somebody is doing something which is bad, which is terrible, then it is not that God wants that person to do it. Now God wants that person to do the right thing, but if they do a wrong thing, that does not mean God's plan is going to get thwarted. Krishna is expert enough that he will make his plan go on even through that person's actions. So, for us, we need to understand that, as I said, one thing is, God has nothing to do with this, that's one unhealthy understanding. And God is the sole cause of this, that's also an unhealthy understanding. So, sometimes we say that this is God's plan. In India, there is this, when we are hurt, when there is some pain, in India there is a Gita Sar. This is the essence of the Gita. I don't know, it might be there here also in many Indian places, where they say, whatever happened is good, whatever is happening is good, whatever will happen will be good. Now, this is supposed to be the essence of the Gita, but there is no sense of this in the Gita. There is no verse anywhere in the Gita which seems to say anything like this. That everything that happens is good. Many problems with that idea, because first of all, the Gita's focus is not on what happens. The Gita's focus is on what we should do. Arjuna is not asking Krishna, why is this war happening? I don't want to fight against Bhishma and Drona. Why do I have to fight against them? Krishna doesn't give some past life, esoteric story. Bhishma was so and so this life, and you were so and so, and you did this, and he did that, and that's why now you are here. So Krishna really doesn't focus on why things are happening. His focus is on things are happening this way now. What should you do? That pruchhami tvam dharma samvimuhachitaha. That what is the right thing for me to do right now? I want to know that. So from that perspective, the Gita does not say that, okay, whatever happens is good. Bad things do happen. Say when Draupadi was dishonored, she was not actually disrobed, but attempt was made, and that itself was a dishonor at one level. Nobody tells her, jo hua wo acha hua. That what happened was good. No, horrible things happen in this world, and to say that horrible things are good, that itself is a horrible thing. People go through unbearable pain in life at times, and we can't artificially say, oh, whatever happens is good. So instead of now whatever happens can be for good. Some good can come out of it. So when we are hurt, to think this is God's plan, not necessarily this is this person's evil intention. But what can I say? There is some plan of God in this. It is not that God doesn't know what is happening over here. That whatever is happening with me, this person is doing it, and this person is doing it as a terrible person doing this, but there is some plan of God in this. Now, what exactly is the plan? And how I should play my part in that plan? How I should see what am I meant to do over here? That is something which requires buddhi. And that's what we'll be discussing in our last session. But the idea here is, when we are dealing with situations, we don't have to escalate the cause of everything to God. That there is something for me to learn over here, there is some way I can serve and grow in this situation. All that is true. But that does not mean God has done this. It is this person who has done this. This person may be evil, or this person just misusing their free will. When we say it's evil, means they have become so conditioned that they just nonchalantly do bad things. They just don't care for it, or they actually care to hurt others. And they delight in hurting others, whichever way it is. So I'll give 2 examples of this point, that there is some plan of God in this, and then we will move forward in towards question answers here. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand that we may see something, we may see someone going through something, and what's the role of karma? And I was thinking of Sabari Muni, that he made an offense to Garuda, and it said that because of that he fell down. He saw the 2 fishes copulating, and then he left his penances and got entangled in many things. So how do we understand it if we see someone going through some difficulty? Do we see it as that, okay, this is their karma? Is that the kind of conclusion that we make about it, or is that inaccurate?
Okay. So now let's consider that particular incident. Shaubari Muni was a sage. He was performing immense austerities underwater, and then he saw some fish copulating, and that triggered desire within him, and he just gave up his meditation, and he sought gratification of his desires. So now the answer, the explanation that is given is because of in the past he had committed an offense to the great devotee Garuda. Now that is true, but is that the only lesson that our acharyas teach? Acharyas also say that the world is such a place of temptation that just by the sight of some animals procreating one can get agitated. That means they are also saying that we look at the immediate cause and we learn to protect ourselves, isn't it? Now, is that immediate cause a sufficient cause? Sometimes it may be, sometimes it may not be. So, we can take lessons at different levels from it. Now, if somebody is doing something wrong, let's say Shaubari Muni's action, for example, was not something, it was a fall, but it was not really hurting anyone. So there's no victim. It was not that he forced himself on anyone. He used his mystic powers to make himself attractive. He got a lot of wealth, and then he got the hands of some princess who willingly came with him. So it is not a crime. It is a fall. Now, it is a fall, and that happened because of particular reasons. So when we see somebody doing something which is, say, spiritually something going down, and yes, we have a right and responsibility to try to figure out what happened. Now, does that mean that we should judge and label and condemn that person? Not necessarily. So generally not. But we can learn some lessons for ourselves, what we should not do. And as far as that person is concerned, if their actions are not appropriate for the particular role that they are playing, for the station that they are in, then maybe that their particular role has to change. They can still practice bhakti. Say a simple thing. Say somebody has difficulty in controlling their eating urges. Like there are alcoholics, there are foodaholics. Now, if somebody is like that, then maybe they should not be in charge of Mahaprasad. Isn't it? so now I may say, okay, this is some. Why doesn't that person have control over the senses? Okay, what that and we could go into some specific reason for that. But the point is, at that particular point, it's not just okay. It's their karma. It's their own urges. It's going between them and Krishna. That's true. But if that is going to have some consequences for others, then that has to be considered also. Am I addressing your question?
Yeah, somewhat. But we still see it as, because it seemed like sometimes it seemed that if something happens to someone, I don't know, if they're hit by a car or something like that, sometimes we may think that this was something that done in their previous life. But it also seems like karma it can be something that they've done in this life for that to happen, right? That was the point I was trying to understand. Is karma something?
Oh, okay. So generally, when something bad happens to someone, so they face a bad situation, because of it they may do something bad also. So most of the times, past karma works through some present karma. Most of the times. That means, say, normally we would say karma is what? The principle of karma is that, say, if I do an action worth, say, units 10, then I get a result or a reaction worth units 10. So it's like I go to a shop and buy something worth 10 pounds, I have to pay 10 pounds. So if I put my hand near fire, my hand gets burnt. So whatever action I do, I get a reaction. That's at the basic level of karma. But in real life, things are complicated. Sometimes I may do an action that's worth unit 10, but I may get a reaction that's worth unit 100. Now, why is that? Because there is some past karma worth unit 90 that is coming in over there. So, say somebody has a credit line in the supermarket chain and the shopping mall, and they go and buy, and they keep buying throughout the month. They don't have to pay anything. And one day they go and they just buy something worth 2 pounds, and they get a bill worth 200 pounds. What happened? Well, it was throughout your month you are buying. So that all is coming right now. So similarly for us, say somebody may drive drunk. And driving drunk is bad. Many people drive drunk. But somebody may drive drunk and just one moment of inattention is there, and that time some child runs across the road and they hit the child. And even the child is not terribly hurt, but they are going to get into a truckload of trouble. Now, did that accident happen because they were driving drunk, or is it because of past karma? Well, it's both, isn't it? Driving drunk is a problem, but driving drunk and having a child run across the road at the same time, it's not just driving drunk. So many times, our present actions become means by which our past reactions also come to us. And that's when we sometimes feel life is unfair. And it's just a small thing. You know, we speak one little harsh word to someone, and that person becomes our lifelong enemy. So why are you taking this so seriously? Just forget it. But that person will just become like a leech, not letting us go at all. Now, it just feels terribly unfair. But it is that It is not just that action coming to us. It's past action coming to us. Now, of course, if we are honest, we also will find that sometimes we do something terribly wrong. Something it's worth minus 100. But then the result we get is just minus 10. Why? Maybe there because from our past karma, something positive is coming up. There's one devotee who told me that when he wanted to go for Mangalarti, he actually had to do the worship and he was very tired. So he somehow woke up, got ready, got into his car, and his car he fell asleep. He just fell asleep and he said he just suddenly something woke him up and he saw that he was right next to the temple. So he said, from my home there's a straight drive. He says, Krishna protected me. He says, Krishna's mercy. I told him, yeah, it's Krishna's mercy, but don't make it a habit of expecting Krishna's mercy. So drunk driving is dangerous. Sleepy driving can be actually even more dangerous at times. So sometimes we may do something wrong, but we may not get the consequences. So we could see it as, okay, I had some positive karma because of which I didn't get the consequences. It could be that it's Krishna has intervened. But the point is, the basic principle of karma is that our actions matter. The philosophy of karma, the whole point of it is that our actions matter. Choose our actions wisely. So even when our actions don't seem to matter, still they do matter. I am doing good and still nothing good is happening to me. But that doesn't mean that my doing good is useless. It will have a result. Maybe because I have done something negative in the past, because of which my good actions are not giving the results right. But they will. Okay. Yes, please.
So like using your example of working for a tyrannical person or being in an undesirable relationship, for example, where is the limit between you're in a situation and we can then use the situation to say, one, this is a result of some karma, and we're in somebody else's kshetra, for example, and then we're using it as an opportunity to learn, grow, surrender to Krishna, and increase our devotion. But then sometimes I've done this in situations, I can see it many times, where someone stays in that situation, that job, that relationship, that financial position, health position doesn't help themselves. So where is the limit between someone saying like, I surrendered to this and I'm staying in this because this is my karma and this is what was destined for me. So
this is a good segue to our next session. But it's a very important point. Let's turn the situation over to someone else. Say somebody has been robbed and they go to the police and report, I've been robbed. And the police says, it's your own karma. Would that be acceptable? I said, police will not say that because the police, today the government is secular. But assume, even if there was the government which was according to Vedic principles. Say in the Mahabharata, there's an incident where a Brahmana is robbed. And a Brahmana comes to Arjuna. And Arjuna doesn't tell them, it's your own karma that you are robbed. Arjuna actually takes a great effort. His weapons are in the room where Yudhishthira and Draupadi are together. And they have a rule that when Draupadi is with one of them, others should not go there. So everyone can have private time with her. But Arjuna goes there, explains the situation, gets the weapons, goes and saves that Brahmana. And then because of that, he says now, if we interfere in each other's privacy, that the consequences that will go on, whoever intrudes in somebody else's privacy, that person will go on a 1 year exile to the forest. So he actually goes on 1 year exile. So the point is that when some suffering is there, the focus should not be what is whose karma. The focus should be what is my dharma? Not, okay, who has done what in the past because of which this has happened. If we start going in that direction, what is whose karma? Where will you stop that then? Say there is a small baby who is crying. Should the mother think that the baby is crying because of past karma? That would be monstrous, isn't it? So the mother should be thinking that this is my baby, it's my responsibility to take care of the baby. And I will do everything possible to comfort the baby. Sometimes it may happen that despite the best efforts of the mother, the baby may still have some disease and the baby may still keep crying. And that time, once we have done our dharma and still we can't do much about the suffering, then we can say, okay, maybe this is past karma. But the idea of past karma should not be used as an excuse for not doing our present dharma. That's why, as I said earlier, going back to the principle that whenever we face any situation, look for the drushta cause first. Look for the immediate cause first. And then look for the invisible cause later. So I was in Australia, I was talking with one young couple. So the husband and wife are talking separately. So the husband said that he had started practicing bhakti. And then he had married and his wife was introduced to bhakti and she was also started practicing to some extent. So then this young man was telling me, my wife does this, she doesn't listen to this, she doesn't do this, she doesn't agree with this, she doesn't do this. And then he said, I have got a realization. I said, what is that? He says, that Krishna has given me such a disagreeable wife so that I become detached. Okay. I said, wait a minute. Then, and I talked with his wife and she explained certain things. There's some basic things which she was expecting and he was just being negligent. And I told him that, what you are saying could be true. But if you are jumping to that explanation without doing your dharma right now, if she has certain expectations from you, you need to fulfill as much as is possible for you reasonably, as a part of your responsibility. So if we don't do what the other person expects us to do, what we are expected to do in a particular role, and then that other person complains, and we say, I got a complaining partner because of my past karma. Well, your partner is complaining not because of your past karma, but because of your present karma. Isn't it? So if we start jumping to previous karma as an explanation all the time, then we can become passive, we can become irresponsible. So how to assess the situation? That requires some intelligence. And start with the immediate. And then move gradually towards the more distant explanations. So I'll talk in the next session about 3 broad ways in which when we face difficulty, how do we respond to the difficulty. But whether it is karma or whether it is God's plan, these are all valid explanations to consider. But the idea is those explanations, they should not replace the immediate explanations. We are being given a bigger explanatory framework, a bigger causal circle with which to make sense of things when they don't make immediate sense. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to make sense of them at an immediate level. Going back to the example of a boss, maybe my boss is abusive or exploitative because, the previous people who worked under them have all been irresponsible, incompetent, lazy, and that's why the boss feels that this is the only way. I have to get people to work. I have to create fear in them for me. Now, maybe if we are responsible, if we are polite, if we are competent, maybe the boss attitude will change. So, now sometimes it may not change also, that's possible. But instead of jumping to the explanation that it's past karma because of this is happening and I'm meant to tolerate this, you need to consider various explanations. And based on which explanation we find is the most sensible, we will have to find the appropriate responsibility. Okay? So, one last point I'll make before we conclude. If you have any further questions, we will discuss it. We'll have time for question and answers after the last session. So, now when you talk about Krishna's role in adversity, in distress. So, basically, the universe, at a fundamental level, the universe is like a university of adversity. That this world is a place where everybody will face distress. Krishna said this world is dukkhalaya. But it is not just meant to be a prison sentence where you suffer. It's more like a university where we are meant to learn something from that suffering and grow. So now Krishna's role in adversity, we can look at 3 different levels. One is Krishna is the cause of the adversity. Well, maybe not. Then Krishna is our comfort during the adversity. That the problem has come, the problem is there. But if I remember Krishna, then the impact of the problem is not so much. The problem is there, but the remembrance of Krishna gives me some comfort, some shelter, some solace. Now, this is there. And Krishna is the cure for the problem. Now, Krishna is the cure in the ultimate sense. Yes. In the immediate sense, it depends. So, is it that, say, if I have some relationship issues with someone, I just chant Hare Krishna more and more and the problem will go away? The relationship issue will be healed? Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe if I have some relationship issues, maybe I have to do some mediation, I have to do, maybe develop some humility and hear the other person, try to understand their perspective, address their concerns, and then things will be resolved. So it may vary from situation to situation. But for us, Krishna is, it's important to recognize that Krishna is not necessarily the cause of the suffering. And we shouldn't use Krishna as the cure for the suffering to neglect other ways of dealing with the suffering. So, yes, Krishna is the ultimate cure, but it could also be that it is Krishna who gives us the intelligence to look for other practical cures. So, how to approach suffering, how to graduate through this university of adversity, what are the different approaches we could take, that will be our last session. I'll summarize what we discussed now. So, we were talking today about Krishna's role, God's role in our suffering, our distress, our hurts. So we discussed broadly 3 points that when events happen, there can be multiple causal contexts in which they can be put. So we discussed like the falling apple. We could look at a mechanical context, that the principle of gravity. We could look at a spiritual context, that it is God. So, in different situations, different things may be the most relevant. So, the idea is intelligence means we look at the constructive context. Now, what makes a particular context constructive? That it is actionable. We can do something about that issue when we place it in context. So now with respect to causal context, we discussed that there could be when some event happens, that event may be caused by our free will, we may use it rightly or wrongly. It could be caused by somebody else doing some evil. It could be ultimately God's will. So there is suffering. It could be, maybe I am dealing with this person wrong, I need to learn better. Maybe there is some evil in that person and there is God's will. So, we discussed about how when we use the word God's will, it can refer to intention, but it can also refer to just the permission. So God is the cause of all causes, not cause of all effects. It is not that He makes. It is people who will misuse their free will to do certain things. And when that happens, we can't say that God is responsible. We discuss the example of that person having the kshetra. So when somebody else passes through their kshetra, that person may be affected. So when that person does something, it is not God doing it, that person doing it. So what is the devotional way of looking at it? That so when we face distress, so this distress is God's plan. That is questionable. That there is some God's plan in this. Now what is that plan? That I have to find out, that I have to use my intelligence. And in general, we move from the drushta, visible explanations, then to the adrushta. So try to make sense first at an immediate level, and if you can't, then go towards deeper level. So when there is distress, our focus needs to be on our dharma. What is the right thing for to do? Not whose karma. We can become if we focus on whose karma, we can unnecessarily become passive. And then lastly, we discussed how God can be playing multiple roles in the suffering. Is He the cause of the suffering? Maybe, maybe not. Is He the cure for the suffering? Yes, ultimately, but not immediately. He can be our comfort amid suffering, and He can help us He can help us find the right way to deal with it. So, how do we find that right way? That we'll be discussing in the last session. Thank you very much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.